Childhood is supposed to be full of careless afternoons, but our neighborhood carried a strange weight, an invisible sickness settling over the streets. My younger cousin, Mike, claimed a shadow trailed his every step. He called her Mommy Ego. At the time, I thought he was making it up. Kids do that. They invent monsters to make themselves the center of attention. One afternoon, my aunt was out at a meeting, and we were parked in front of the television. A water filter commercial appeared, and the smiling spokesperson asked, "Would you like a refreshing glass of water?" The second she finished speaking, every faucet in the house roared to life at maximum pressure. Across the kitchen, wooden cupboards slammed violently outward, thrown open by nothing at all. That impossible synchronization between a recorded TV broadcast and a violent physical eruption in our kitchen completely shattered my skepticism. The entity was real, and it was listening. While Mike sat there eerily composed, treating the chaos like regular background noise, I scrambled to regain control. I forced the kitchen taps shut, then ran down the hall to the bathroom to do the same. But as I reached the sink, I looked up at the small barred window. At least 10 snakes were tightly coiled around the wrought iron, their scales rhythmically scraping against the glass, frantically trying to push their way inside. We called Mike's dad in a panic. He ordered us to stay locked inside while he went around the side of the house to chop the serpents away with a garden hoe. The sight of those serpents erased the last remnants of our childhood games. The haunting had transformed from a spectral whisper into a physical siege that required us to lock the windows and wait for someone to kill the things at the door. Trying to escape the suffocating air of the house, we started spending our afternoons down by a nearby creek. Our usual spot was under a concrete bridge that doubled of a roost for dozens of Mexican freetail bats, leaving an acrid, heavy stench hanging in the air. One afternoon, we caught a sudden movement. A dark, shapeless mass darted straight into the dense thickets right beneath the bat colony. Driven by a horrible mix of curiosity and the fear of getting bitten by a falling bat, we rushed deeper into the brush basin. We scrambled quickly past the waterline, dropping into a sunken clearing completely hidden from the road above. Resting in the shallow water was a bleached, skeletal ribcage of a lamb. Nestled inside the hollow bones, dead still, was a dark, coiled snake. We didn't speak. Gripped by total panic, we turned around and ran frantically all the way back, not stopping until we slammed the front door of the house behind us. Finding that macabre display out in the wild confirmed a terrifying truth. The malignancy had infected the geography of the entire neighborhood, claiming the water and the brush as its own. Fast forward to a weekend sleepover, supervised by Mike's older teenage sisters. Everything felt relatively quiet and perfectly normal as we settled in for bedtime. The shift happened at exactly 2 a.m. Deep, agonizingly slow scratches began raking down the far side of our bedroom door. The scratching eventually stopped, only to be replaced by a faint voice. It was a woman, humming a distorted, mocking lullaby, garbling words we couldn't quite interpret. Then the rest of the house exploded. Kitchen cupboards thrashed open and slammed shut, dishes shattered across the floor, and from down the hall, Mike's sisters started screaming. When the chaos finally died down and we crept out to inspect the damage, we found the hallway side of Mike's door heavily scarred. Deep gouges were carved into the wood, like an invisible hand had taken a chisel to the frame, while the inside of the door remained perfectly smooth. With the rest of the home completely overturned, that single bedroom was the only space that hadn't been physically breached. We retreated back inside, hoping the fragile threshold would hold for the rest of the night. We made one last desperate play for safety by dragging Lucky, a large white Labrador, into the room with us. Moments later, the power grid failed, plunging the house into total darkness. Out in the pitch-black hallway, the ethereal lullaby started up again. This time it was accompanied by heavy, rhythmic footsteps, methodically stomping closer and closer to our door. Whatever little courage we had left evaporated when Lucky reacted. This massive, protective dog let out a pathetic whimper and immediately crawled underneath the bed to hide. The brass doorknob started to slowly oscillate. It quickly escalated, shaking violently and rattling in its casing, paired with a relentless, heavy pounding against the exterior wood. Without warning, the heavy door was flung inward with absolute ferocity. The brass knobs smashed into the white plaster wall behind it, punching a deep, permanent hollow straight into the drywall. And then, nothing. The manifestation simply stopped. The sheer, suffocating quiet that followed that explosion of violence was infinitely more terrifying than the noise itself. When the sun finally came up, we surveyed the wreckage. The interior of the house looked like a localized tornado had ripped through the living room and kitchen. But when Mike's parents returned, they refused to entertain a single word about the anomalous events. Instead, they looked at the shattered dishes and gouged walls and decided we were entirely responsible for the destruction. Smashed plates can be replaced. At the adults' absolute refusal to see the truth isolated us in that trauma. By dismissing the terror, they ensured mommy ego would maintain a permanent residence in our shared memory.